Hey everyone, I'm Peter Stories here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now settle in, get cozy, and let yourself relax. My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm going to tell you about the 48 hours that changed everything I believed about life, death, and what lurks in the shadows between Olympic National Park's ancient trees. I've been a ranger here for 12 years, but nothing, and I mean fucking nothing, could have prepared me for what I encountered while searching for Ashley Chen in October 2018. The call came in at 0547 hours on October 13th, just as I was finishing my second cup of coffee at the Hurricane Ridge Ranger Station. Sarah had packed my thermos with her signature dark roast blend, the same one that had gotten me through countless early mornings since Emma was born 8 years ago. The metallic taste of fear hadn't yet replaced the rich coffee flavor on my tongue, but it would soon enough. Unit 23, we have a code silver. 22-year-old female Ashley Chen reported missing by hiking companions at Deer Park Campground. Last seen approximately 2100 hours yesterday evening near Salt Duke River tributary, family en route from Seattle. My stomach dropped. Something felt wrong immediately. Not the usual wrong of someone lost in familiar territory, but a deeper wrongness that made the hair on my neck stand up like it was reaching for something. I'd learned to trust that feeling over the years. Other rangers called it my sixth sense, but I just knew when the forest was holding secrets it shouldn't be holding. I radioed back, Unit 23 responding, ETA 15 minutes. Then I texted Sarah, missing hiker case, might be late tonight. Love you both. Her response came instantly. Stay safe. Emma made you a good luck drawing. It's in your jacket pocket. I felt around my jacket and pulled out a crayon drawing of our family holding hands under a rainbow. Emma had written Daddy the Hero in wobbly purple letters. I tucked it back into my pocket next to my wedding ring. Sarah always worried I'd lose it on the job, so I carried it instead of wearing it during searches. The drive to Salt Duke should have taken 23 minutes. Instead, it took 38 because twice I had to pull over when that feeling hit me like a physical blow. Something was watching from the tree line, something that made my hands shake on the steering wheel and my vision blur at the edges. The Garmin GPS kept recalculating my route, adding 3 miles that shouldn't have existed. By the time I reached the trailhead, my heart was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The missing girl's friends, college kids from University of Washington, stood huddled around a Subaru Outback, their faces pale in the weak morning light filtering through Douglas firs that seemed taller and more oppressive than usual. I'm Ranger Morrison, I announced, adjusting the weight of my Kelty search pack. Tell me exactly what happened. The kid who stepped forward had bloodshot eyes and hands that wouldn't stop trembling. I'm Derek, Ashley's boyfriend. We were camping with another couple, Mike and Jess. Around 9 last night, Ashley said she heard someone calling for help from across the river. She grabbed her flashlight and just went to look. Did you hear anything? Derek shook his head. Nothing. But Ashley insisted someone was in trouble. She said it sounded like a man calling, "Help me, please help me," over and over. That wrongness sensation intensified, creeping up my spine like ice water. Which direction did she go? Northwest, toward that big cedar grove. We followed her about 50 yards, but she told us to stay back, that she could handle it alone. That was the last time we saw her. I pulled out my radio. Base, this is Unit 23. Beginning preliminary search at coordinates 47.9547, 123-6044. Ashley Chen missing approximately 10 hours, headed northwest from Salt Duke tributary toward Old Growth Cedar Grove. Copy, Unit 23, Unit 15 and Unit 31 en route to assist. As I headed into the forest, my Danner boots crunching through October's carpet of fallen leaves, the feeling of being watched intensified with every step. The Douglas firs and western hemlocks formed a canopy so thick that the morning light barely penetrated, creating an artificial twilight that made every shadow potential danger. I'd covered maybe 300 yards when I first saw him. A figure in ranger green stood about 50 feet ahead, partially obscured by a massive cedar trunk. Something about his posture seemed wrong. too rigid, like he was standing at attention for an inspection that would never end. My radio crackled with static as I approached. "Excuse me," I called out. "You with the search team?" The figure turned, and my blood turned to ice water in my veins. The face was wrong, not deformed, not obviously supernatural, just wrong in a way that made my brain scream warnings. His eyes were too dark, like looking into deep water at night, and his smile stretched wider than human anatomy should allow. "Jake Morrison," he said in a voice that sounded like wind through dead branches. "I've been waiting for you." My hand instinctively went to my Glock 22, though what good a .40 caliber would do against whatever this thing was, I had no idea. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything about you, Jake. I know about Sarah's morning coffee ritual, about Emma's drawings, about the promise you made to be home for dinner tonight." That impossible smile stretched even wider. "I know you're looking for Ashley Chen." Every instinct I'd developed over 12 years in these woods screamed at me to run. But Ashley was out there somewhere, and this thing, this phantom ranger, might know where. "Where is she?" "Follow me," he said, turning and walking deeper into the forest. "I'll take you right to her." I followed because what choice did I have? But with every step, that wrongness feeling grew stronger until it felt like my skeleton was trying to crawl out of my skin. My radio crackled with constant static, and when I tried to check my GPS, the screen showed coordinates that placed me somewhere in the middle of Puget Sound. The Phantom Ranger moved through the forest like he was floating, never disturbing the undergrowth, never making a sound. Meanwhile, I stumbled over roots that seemed to reach for my ankles, pushed through branches that scratched at my face like grasping fingers, and breathed air that tasted increasingly of decay and something else. Something that reminded me of the meat locker at my grandfather's butcher shop. "Tell me about Ashley," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Beautiful girl," the Phantom Ranger replied without turning around. "Reminds me of my daughter. Had a daughter once before the accident." "What accident?" He stopped so suddenly I almost walked into him. When he turned, I saw that his ranger uniform was torn and stained with something dark that could have been old blood. "Same kind of accident you're going to have, Jake." That's when I realized what I was dealing with. The stories the old-timers told around the station on late shifts, stories about Ranger Daniel Kozlov, who died in these woods in 1987 during a search and rescue that went wrong. They said his body was never found, that he'd fallen into some hidden ravine while looking for a lost child. They said on quiet nights you could sometimes hear his radio calling for backup that would never come. They never said he'd come back to collect other rangers. "You're Kozlov," I whispered. The thing that had been Daniel Kozlov 31 years ago laughed, and the sound made my teeth ache. "Very good, Jake. Yes, I'm what's left of Daniel Kozlov, and you're going to join me very soon." My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Emma's soccer game is at 6 p.m. You promised you'd be there." The reminder of my real life, my warm life, my life that existed outside this nightmare, gave me strength I didn't know I had. "Where's Ashley? I'm not going anywhere until I find her." Kozlov's phantom form began to change, the friendly ranger facade melting away like wax in a furnace. His uniform turned black and rotten, his face elongated until it resembled something that had been underwater for decades, and his fingers stretched into claws that dripped with a substance I didn't want to identify. "Ashley is exactly where you're going to be, Jake. 6 feet under the forest floor, feeding the trees with her terror and pain." If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Jake Morrison's situation? Comment below. He lunged at me then, moving faster than anything dead should move, and I barely rolled aside in time to avoid claws that left deep gouges in the cedar trunk behind me. I pulled my Glock and put 3 rounds center mass, but the bullets passed right through him like he was made of shadow and malice. "Physical weapons won't help you here, Jake," Kozlov hissed, circling me like a predator. "This is my domain now, my forest, my rules." But I wasn't helpless. That sixth sense that had always set me apart from other rangers was screaming now, not in warning but in recognition. There was something else in these woods, something that wanted to help. Ashley was alive. I could feel it like a pulse in my bones. I ran. Kozlov's inhuman shriek echoed through the trees behind me as I crashed through undergrowth that seemed to grab at my legs with increasing desperation. My radio finally crackled to life. Unit 23, this is base. What's your location? Other units can't find you. Base, I stopped, realizing I had no idea where I was. The forest around me looked wrong, like someone had taken familiar territory and rearranged it in ways that hurt to look at. Trees grew at impossible angles, their branches intertwining to form barriers that shouldn't exist. Base, I'm in pursuit of missing person Ashley Chen. Be advised, there's something in these woods, something dangerous. Static was the only response. I kept running, following that pulse I could feel but not explain until I burst into a clearing I'd never seen before despite 12 years patrolling these woods. In the center stood another massive cedar, but this one was different. Its bark was carved with symbols that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them, and hanging from its branches were objects that made my stomach lurch. Personal effects, dozens of them. Watches, jewelry, pieces of clothing, all weathered by years of exposure. And there, hanging from a low branch like a macabre Christmas ornament, was a University of Washington ID card. Ashley Chen's ID card. She's beautiful, isn't she? I spun around to find Kozlov standing at the edge of the clearing, but he looked different now. More solid, more real, and infinitely more dangerous. I've been collecting for 31 years, Jake. Hikers, campers, other rangers who got too close to the truth. They all join me eventually. Their fear feeds the forest. Their terror nourishes the trees. At the base of the carved cedar, I could see something that made my vision blur with horror. Bodies, or what was left of them. Skeletal remains wrapped in the roots of the tree, their bones picked clean but still arranged as if they were sitting in judgment. And there, among the dead, was Ashley Chen. But she was still alive? Barely. Her eyes were open and tracking my movement, but the rest of her body was being slowly consumed by the tree roots that had grown through her flesh like obscene jewelry. She tried to speak, but only a wet, gurgling sound emerged from her throat. The tree preserves them, Kozlov explained with obvious pride. Keeps them aware, keeps them terrified for as long as possible. Fear is the most powerful emotion, Jake. It feeds more than love, more than hope, and I've become quite good at cultivating it. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. Emma drew you another picture. It's a rainbow over our house with all of us together. She says it's for when you come home tonight. That's when I understood. The Phantom Ranger fed on fear, but love, real love, the kind that reached across dimensions and held families together, was stronger. I thought about Emma's drawings in my pocket, about Sarah's coffee ritual, about the promise I'd made to be at the soccer game at 6 p.m. I thought about Ashley Chen's family driving up from Seattle, desperate for news about their daughter. You're wrong, I told Kozlov, pulling Emma's drawing from my pocket. Fear isn't the strongest emotion. Love is. Kozlov laughed, but there was uncertainty in the sound now. Love won't save you here, Jake. Love won't stop the roots from growing through your body. Won't stop me from adding your bones to my collection. Maybe not, I admitted, walking toward the tree where Ashley was trapped. But it'll give me the strength to try. What happened next defies every law of physics and biology I understand, but I'm telling you exactly what I experienced. As I approached Ashley, thinking about my family, about her family, about the love that connected us all across the darkness, my hands began to glow with a soft, warm light. Kozlov screamed, actually screamed, as the light spread from my hands to the tree roots holding Ashley prisoner. Where the light touched, the supernatural wood withered and fell away, releasing her from a prison that should have been permanent. Impossible, Kozlov snarled, but his form was becoming translucent again. Love can't exist here. I've purged this place of love. You can't purge what people carry inside them, I said, lifting Ashley's barely conscious form. She was lighter than she should have been, as if the tree had been feeding on more than just her fear. It had been consuming her very substance. That's when I saw the truth carved into the tree's bark, symbols that suddenly made horrible sense. This wasn't just Kozlov's feeding ground. This was his anchor to the world of the living. destroy the tree, and the Phantom Ranger would finally be forced to move on. But the moment I had that realization, Kozlov's form solidified again, more solid and more terrifying than ever. His face twisted into something that belonged in nightmares, all exposed bone and rotting flesh and teeth like broken glass. "You understand now," he hissed. "And understanding is the last thing you'll ever do." He didn't lunge this time. He simply appeared in front of me, claws extended toward my throat. But love, it turns out, is a hell of a lot stronger than fear when it comes to supernatural confrontations. The light that had freed Ashley exploded outward from my chest, and where it struck Kozlov, his phantom flesh began to burn like paper. His screams shattered the unnatural silence of the clearing, and every bird for miles suddenly began singing at once, as if they'd been waiting 31 years for permission to make sound. "This isn't over," Kozlov shrieked as his form began to dissolve. "The forest remembers. The forest always remembers." But it was over. I could feel it in my bones, the same way I'd felt Ashley's presence earlier. The wrongness was lifting, the oppressive weight of supernatural malice evaporating like morning mist. The tree itself began to change, the carved symbols fading until it looked like nothing more than an ordinary, if very old, cedar. The skeletal remains at its base crumbled to dust, finally at peace after decades of supernatural torment. Ashley stirred in my arms, her eyes focusing for the first time since I'd found her. "Ranger Morrison," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've got you," I told her. "You're safe now." "I heard him calling for help," she said. "But when I followed the voice, he wasn't human." "I know, but he's gone now." My radio crackled to life with crystal clear reception. "Unit 23, this is Unit 15. We've got your location, ETA 3 minutes. Copy that. I've got Ashley Chen. She's alive but needs immediate medical attention." "Holy shit, Jake, where have you been? We've been looking for you for 6 hours. 6 hours. It felt like 6 minutes and 6 years at the same time. By the time the other rangers reached us, the clearing looked completely normal. Just another patch of forest in Olympic National Park, with nothing to suggest the horror that had played out there for over 3 decades. They asked about my torn uniform, about the scratches on my face, about how I'd found Ashley in a location that didn't appear on any map. I told them I'd followed her cries for help. It was partially true. Ashley recovered fully, though she still sends me a Christmas card every year with a simple message: "Thank you for bringing me home." She never talks about what happened in the forest, and I've never asked her to. As for me, I kept my promise. I made it to Emma's soccer game at 6 p.m., still wearing my torn Ranger uniform and sporting scratches that Sarah fussed over while Emma scored 2 goals and waved at me from the field. That night, as Sarah and I sat on our porch watching Emma chase fireflies in the backyard, she asked me about the case. "Was it as bad as it felt?" she asked, referring to her uncanny ability to sense when my job took me somewhere dark. "Worse," I admitted. But love won. Love always wins, in the end. She didn't ask for details, and I didn't volunteer them. Some stories are meant to be carried alone. But I'll tell you this, I still patrol Olympic National Park, and I still trust that sixth sense that sets me apart from other rangers. But now I also trust something else. The power of the connections we make, the love we carry, the promises we keep. Because in the end, that's what separates us from the things that haunt the dark places of the world. They're trapped by their fear, their anger, their inability to let go. We're freed by our love. And love, it turns out, is the most powerful force in any forest, supernatural or otherwise. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror. And comment your theory about what really happened to Ashley Chen. I read every single one. My name is Marcus Rodriguez, and I've been a forest ranger for 12 years. I've pulled bodies from ravines, tracked down lost hikers in blizzards, and faced down charging bears with nothing but bear spray and pure adrenaline. I thought I knew every danger these ancient Cascade forests could throw at me. I was wrong about everything. It's October 16th, 2018, and I'm sitting in my truck at the Cascade Ranger Station, watching the pre-dawn darkness through my windshield, while my iPhone X shows 17 missed calls from Rachel Turner's parents. The search for their 22-year-old daughter entered its third day yesterday, and we're no closer to finding her than when she was first reported missing from the Heather Lake Trail. The coffee in my thermos has gone cold, but I can still taste Sophia's morning kiss on my lips from 4 hours ago. She'd pressed her forehead against mine in our kitchen, her dark eyes reflecting the same worry I felt gnawing at my gut. "Bring her home, Mac," she'd whispered, her fingers tracing the wedding ring I've worn for 10 years. "But you come home too. Isabella's got that soccer game Saturday, and Miguel's been asking when Daddy's going to teach him to tie his boots." The memory of my daughter's sleepy smile and my son's warm hug feels like a lifetime ago as I key my radio. Unit 47 to base. Mac Rodriguez beginning Sector 7 sweep at 0530 hours. Copy Unit 47. Weather forecast shows clear skies, 42 degrees, winds northwest at 8 knots. Full moon rises tomorrow night at 2147 hours. Something ice cold crawls down my spine when Jenny mentions the full moon, though I can't explain why. The October air carries that sharp bite of approaching winter, mixed with the earthy scent of decomposing leaves and something else. Something wrong that I can't identify. I've been hiking these trails since I was Isabella's age, following my grandfather through Douglas firs that were already centuries old when European settlers first arrived. Abuelo used to tell stories about things that lived in these forests long before humans, creatures that hunted by moonlight and left no tracks on the forest floor. Cuentos de miedo, my mother would scold, fairy tales to frighten children. But as I shoulder my pack and check my Garmin GPS, showing coordinates 478021 degree N, 121.1361 degree W, those old stories don't feel like fairy tales anymore. The Heather Lake Trail stretches ahead of me like a dark throat, swallowing my LED headlamp beam after 20 feet. My boots crunch on frost-brittle leaves as I begin the ascent, following the same path Rachel Turner took 3 days ago. According to her roommate, she'd planned a solo day hike to clear her head before midterm exams. She should have been back by sunset. My radio crackles with static. Unit 47, this is base. Search dog teams are starting from the North Access Road. Maintain radio contact every 30 minutes. 10-4 base. Beginning sign cutting now. I know these protocols by heart. Search pattern, grid methodology, LKP establishment. But as I kneel to examine the trail for sign, my hands are shaking in a way that has nothing to do with the morning cold. The first indication that something's fundamentally wrong comes at mile marker 1.3. I'm examining a partial boot print in a patch of mud when I notice the silence. Complete silence. No bird calls, no rustling of small animals in the underbrush. Even the wind has died to nothing, leaving me in a bubble of absolute quiet that makes my breathing sound thunderous. In 12 years of wilderness work, I've never experienced anything like it. I straighten slowly, my hand instinctively moving to the bear spray clipped to my belt. The Douglas firs tower around me like ancient cathedral pillars, their trunks disappearing into darkness above. But now they feel different, watchful. Unit 47 to base, checking in at 0600 hours, approximately mile 1.3 on Heather Lake Trail. No sign of missing person yet. The radio response comes back distorted, filled with static that forms almost patterns. Almost like voices speaking in a language I don't recognize. I continue upward, following Rachel's trail. Her boot prints appear sporadically in soft earth. Size 7 hiking boots, probably Merrill brand based on the tread pattern. But something's wrong with the spacing. The stride length keeps changing, sometimes normal, sometimes stretched as if she'd been running or pulled forward by something. At mile 2, I find her water bottle. It's a standard Nalgene, bright blue, lying 15 feet off the trail in a patch of salmonberry bushes. But when I pick it up, the plastic is warm despite the morning cold, and there's a smell clinging to it that makes my stomach clench. Sweet and cloying, like overripe fruit mixed with something medicinal. I key my radio. Unit 47 to base. Found evidence at coordinates 47.8032 degree N, 121.285 degree W. Water bottle belonging to missing person, approximately 15 feet off trail. Copy, Unit 47, bag and tag for evidence, continue search pattern. As I seal the bottle in an evidence bag, I notice something that stops my heart cold. Scratched into the plastic as if carved with a fingernail are symbols I don't recognize. Not letters or numbers, but geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They seem to shift when I'm not focusing on them, writhing like living things. My iPhone shows 7:23 a.m. when I reach the point where Rachel's trail simply ends. Not gradually disappears or becomes hard to follow. Ends. Her boot prints lead to a clearing maybe 30 feet across, surrounded by ancient Douglas firs whose trunks are scarred with those same writhing symbols, carved deep into bark that's been growing for 4 centuries. In the center of the clearing stands a single tree I've never seen before despite hiking this trail hundreds of times. It's massive, easily 8 feet in diameter, with bark so dark it seems to absorb light. Its branches twist upward in patterns that make my eyes water, and hanging from those branches are things that look like cocoons. But they're not cocoons. They're shaped like people. I'm moving toward the tree before I realize it, my legs carrying me forward despite every instinct screaming at me to run. The smell from Rachel's water bottle is stronger here, so thick I can taste it coating my tongue. Sweet rot and chemical wrongness. The largest cocoon hangs at eye level, translucent enough that I can see a human silhouette inside. Female. Long hair. About the right size to be Rachel Turner. I reach for my radio with hands that won't stop shaking. Unit 47 to base. I found... Jesus Christ, I need backup at coordinates 47.8041 degree N, 121.176 degree W. Immediate backup and medical response. The radio crackles back, pure static, but underneath the white noise, I swear I can hear something else. Breathing. Patient, inhuman breathing. That's when I notice the sun is wrong. When I entered the clearing, my iPhone showed 7:23 a.m. Now it shows 11:47 p.m., and the light filtering through the canopy has the silver quality of moonlight. But there's no moon visible through the branches, just an endless dark sky that seems to pulse with its own rhythm. What the hell? The cocoon moves, not swaying in a breeze. There is no breeze. It contracts and expands like something breathing, and I can see the silhouette inside shifting, trying to break free. I pull out my Leatherman and move toward the cocoon, but the closer I get, the more wrong everything feels. The tree's bark isn't bark at all, I realize. It's something organic but alien, covered in a pattern of scales that reflect the non-light in ways that make my brain hurt. And the breathing sound isn't coming from my radio anymore. It's coming from all around me, from the tree itself, from the very ground beneath my feet. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Marcus's situation? Comment below. I slice through the cocoon with my knife, and Rachel Turner spills onto the forest floor in a rush of amber fluid that burns my nostrils. She's alive but unconscious, her skin pale and cold, wearing the same hiking clothes from 3 days ago. But she hasn't aged. If anything, she looks younger, her face smooth and unmarked by time. As I check her pulse, steady but slow, I become aware that we're not alone. They emerge from between the trees like shadows gaining substance. Tall figures that might once have been human, but stretched and twisted into something else. Their limbs are too long, their faces too narrow, and they move with a liquid grace that defies human anatomy. But it's their eyes that stop my heart, completely black, reflecting the impossible moonlight like mirrors, and filled with an intelligence that predates everything I understand about the world. The largest figure steps forward, and when it speaks, its voice comes from everywhere at once. The trees, the ground, the very air around me. You should not have come here, guardian of the small paths. I'm reaching for my sidearm when Rachel Turner opens her eyes. They're the same impossible black as the creatures surrounding us. And when she smiles, I see that her teeth have become pointed, predatory. Thank you for finding me, Marcus, she says in a voice like grinding stone. The Cazador Lunar has been so patient waiting for the full moon tomorrow, but now we have everything we need. The world tilts sideways as understanding crashes over me. Rachel Turner disappeared 3 days ago, but she's been here much longer. The cocoon wasn't a prison, it was a chrysalis. You see, Guardian, the creature continues, your kind has such a limited understanding of time, linear, sequential. But we have walked these forests since before your sun learned to burn. We remember when the moon was young and hungry, when it called to us across the void between stars. I'm backing toward the edge of the clearing, but the trees have moved. The path I entered by no longer exists, and the ancient Douglas firs form an unbroken wall around us. The Cazador Lunar comes with tomorrow's full moon, Rachel's twisted voice explains. But it requires an anchor to your world, someone who loves deeply, whose connections to your kind run strong. My phone buzzes with a text message from Sophia. Mijo, Isabella keeps asking when you'll be home. She made you a drawing of our family. I told her Daddy's helping someone lost in the forest. Come home safe. Te amo. The creatures around me begin to laugh, and the sound is like wind through a graveyard. A family man, the leader observes. Perfect. Your love will draw the Cazador Lunar through the barriers between worlds. And your family, they will call to you across the void, even when you are something else entirely. I finally understand why I found Rachel's trail so easily, why her water bottle was warm, why the signs led me here in a perfect line. This was never a search and rescue operation. It was a trap. The creatures begin to circle, their movements synchronized like a dance they've performed for millennia. My radio hisses with static that resolves into voices, not human voices, but something mimicking human speech patterns. Unit 47, this is base. Marcus, where are you? Your family is here asking about you. Your little girl is crying. That's not base, I whisper, backing against the impossible tree. Unit 47, your wife is very worried. She says to tell you that dinner is getting cold and Miguel needs you to read him a story. But as the fake transmission continues, I catch something else underneath the static. Real voices. Sophia, actually crying. Isabella asking where Daddy went. The genuine fear of my family as the rangers at base tell them I've been missing for 3 days. 3 days. But I just started the search this morning. Time flows differently here, in this place between worlds. I've been standing in this clearing for minutes, but hours have passed in the real world. Maybe days. And tomorrow night, when the full moon rises, the Cazador Lunar will come, Rachel continues, her black eyes reflecting impossible starlight. It will wear your flesh into the world, use your love as a gateway. Your family will see you coming home, but what returns will be something that has hunted among the stars since before your species learned to make fire. I think of Isabella's soccer game, of Miguel's untied shoes, of Sophia's worried eyes as she kissed me goodbye in a kitchen that suddenly feels like a memory from someone else's life. The creatures are close enough that I can feel the cold radiating from their skin. Close enough to see that their fingernails have become claws, sharp enough to carve symbols into bark, into flesh. But as despair threatens to crush me, I remember something else. Something Abuelo told me when I was 8 years old sitting around a campfire in these very woods. Mijo, the old things, they have power, but they also have rules. Ancient agreements made when the world was young. They can take what is offered, but they cannot simply steal what is protected. I pull out my phone and look at Sophia's message again. At the drawing Isabella made of our family. At the picture on my lock screen of Miguel sleeping in my arms after his first day of kindergarten. You made a mistake, I tell the creatures surrounding me. They pause in their circling and I can feel their alien attention focusing on me like a weight. You thought family love would make me weak, make me easy prey for your lunar hunter. I stand straighter, feeling something burning in my chest that's stronger than fear. But you don't understand human love at all. The leader tilts its too long head. Explain. Love doesn't make us weak. It makes us dangerous. I think of Sophia facing down a brown bear that got too close to our campsite last summer, protecting our children with nothing but a camping chair and pure maternal fury. I think of the time Isabella punched Tommy Hendricks for making fun of Miguel's stutter, even though Tommy was twice her size. You want to use my love as a gateway? Fine. But when that door opens, you won't just get me coming through. I close my eyes and focus on every memory of my family, every birthday, every Christmas morning, every quiet moment when we were all together and the world felt perfect and safe. I pour all of that love, all of that fierce protective instinct, into a single burning thought. Come and get me. The change starts as warmth in my chest, but it spreads outward like wildfire. The creatures around me hiss and step back as golden light begins to emanate from my skin. Not supernatural light, but something more fundamental. The light of human connection, of love so strong it bends reality around itself. Impossible, the leader whispers. Humans cannot. You're right. I can't. The light is blazing from me now, turning the dark clearing into a sun-bright cathedral. But we can. Because suddenly I'm not alone anymore. I feel Sophia's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder, Isabella's fierce determination burning in my veins, Miguel's innocent trust wrapping around me like armor, and behind them, the love of everyone who's ever cared about me, everyone I've helped in 12 years of ranger work, everyone connected to me by the invisible threads of human compassion. The creatures are screaming now, their alien voices cracking as the light burns them. The impossible tree begins to wither, its nightmare bark peeling away to reveal something underneath that might once have been an ordinary Douglas fir, twisted by centuries of alien influence. The lunar hunt will continue, the leader snarls, its form already becoming translucent. The Cazador will find other anchors, other worlds. Maybe, I agree, feeling the strength of my family's love flowing through me like liquid fire. But it won't be through me, and it won't be through anyone I can protect. The creatures fade like mist in sunlight, and Rachel Turner collapses to the ground. But when I kneel beside her, her eyes are brown again, human again, and she's breathing normally. The clearing around us is just a clearing now. The ancient tree is just an ancient tree, scarred but no longer alien. And through the Douglas firs, I can see the familiar trail leading back to the world I know. My radio crackles with Jenny's voice, clear and static-free. Unit 47, please respond. We have teams converging on your last known position. Unit 47 to base, I reply, lifting Rachel Turner into my arms. I've got her. The missing person is alive. We're coming home. As I carry Rachel down the mountain, the sun rises properly behind us, burning away the last shadows of the impossible night. But I know the Cazador Lunar is still out there, somewhere in the void between worlds, waiting for the next full moon, the next anchor to drag it into our reality. The difference is, now I know something it doesn't. Human love isn't a weakness to be exploited. It's a weapon, and some of us know how to use it. I reach the trailhead just as the search teams arrive, their flashlights sweeping through the morning mist. Sophia is there waiting, Isabella and Miguel clutching her hands, all three of them running toward me with tears of relief streaming down their faces. As my family wraps me in their embrace, I understand what the Cazador Lunar got wrong about human nature. It saw our love as chains that could bind us, vulnerabilities to be exploited. But our love isn't chains. It's wings, and tomorrow night when the full moon rises over the Cascade forests, it will find no doorway here. Because some guardians know exactly what they're guarding against. Rachel Turner spent 3 days in the hospital for observation, with no memory of what happened after she left the main trail. The official report lists her disappearance as a case of temporary disorientation due to dehydration and exposure. But sometimes late at night when the moon is dark and the forest is quiet, I stand on my back porch and listen to the ancient trees whispering secrets older than human civilization. And I whisper back, not through me, not through mine, not ever. The Cazador Lunar still hunts among the stars, patient and eternal, but it will have to find another world to claim. This one has guardians who know the true power of human love. And we're watching.
Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like if you want more terrifying Ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror. And comment your theory about what really happened to Rachel Turner. I read every single one.
My name is Derek Sullivan, and I've been a forest ranger for 12 years at Olympic National Park in Washington State. What I'm about to tell you happened in October 2018, and I swear on my daughter's life that every word is true. Though I pray to God she never has to learn the things I learned that autumn night. The morning started like every other. 5:47 a.m., my iPhone 8 buzzing on the nightstand next to a framed photo of my wife Karen and our 8-year-old twins Emma and Jack. Karen was already up making coffee, humming that Taylor Swift song she'd been obsessed with since the kids played it non-stop during our camping trip to Lake Crescent. I kissed her neck as she stood at the counter, inhaling the familiar scent of her vanilla shampoo mixed with the rich Colombian blend she special ordered from that place in Seattle. "Another long one today?" she asked, not turning around but leaning back into me. "Just routine patrol," I lied, knowing damn well I'd been assigned to the North Sector, the part of the park where we'd had 3 missing hikers in the past 2 months, all cases that went cold after 48 hours of searching. "I'll be home by 6 for Emma's soccer practice." She turned in my arms, her green eyes serious. "Promise me something, Derek. Promise me you won't do anything stupid out there. The kids need their daddy to come home." I kissed her forehead, tasting the salt of her worried sweat. "Always do, don't I?" But as I grabbed my gear bag and headed for the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that this promise might be harder to keep than usual. Something was watching me from the shadows beyond our porch light. The call came in at 8:23 a.m., crackling through the radio in my Ford F-250 as I drove up the winding road toward the Hoh River Trail. "Unit 47, this is base. We've got a code yellow, missing person female, age 24. Emily Rodriguez, last seen yesterday at 1400 hours near GPS coordinates 47.86 on 6 degree N, 123.9348 degree. I grabbed the handset, my stomach already nodding. Those coordinates put her right in the heart of what we privately called the blind zone, a section of old-growth forest where compasses spun wildly, GPS units malfunctioned, and even experienced rangers reported feeling disoriented. "Unit 47, copy that. What's our timeline?" "Subject is 24 hours overdue from scheduled check-in with her hiking party. Family is en route from Seattle. Search and rescue mobilizing at the Hoh River Ranger Station, ETA 10 minutes. I pressed harder on the accelerator, the truck's tires humming against wet asphalt. 24 hours in October meant hypothermia was a real threat. But something else gnawed at me. Emily Rodriguez was the 4th person to disappear in that exact grid square since August. The other 3 had never been found, not even their gear. As I pulled into the ranger station parking lot, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Every single crow in the surrounding Douglas firs was facing the same direction, toward the trailhead, and they were absolutely silent. Sarah Rodriguez, Emily's older sister, was waiting for me with red-rimmed eyes and hands that shook as she clutched a thermos of coffee. "She's smart, Ranger Sullivan. Emily wouldn't just wander off. She texted me at 2 p.m. yesterday, said she was following a beautiful deer trail she'd never seen before, even though she's hiked this area dozens of times." I pulled out my notepad, trying to ignore how the temperature had dropped 15 degrees since I'd arrived. Did she mention anything unusual? Strange sounds, feeling lost, equipment problems? "That's just it," Sarah said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Her last text was weird. She said the forest was watching her, but in a good way, like it was welcoming her home. She showed me her iPhone screen, and I felt ice water flood my veins. Emily's final message, sent at 2:17 p.m. "The trees have eyes, Sarah, so many beautiful eyes. They're calling me deeper. Don't worry, I belong here now." I stared at the screen, my ranger training warring with a primal terror I couldn't name. In 12 years, I'd never seen a missing person text quite like that. It sounded almost enchanted. My radio crackled. All units, this is base. We've got authorization for full grid search. Coordinates 478606 degree N, 123.9348 degree W, expanding outward in quarter-mile increments. Weather shows incoming storm system, so we've got maybe 6 hours of decent visibility. As I shouldered my 70-pound pack loaded with rope, first aid supplies, emergency shelter, and 3 days' worth of food, my iPhone buzzed. A text from Karen. Kids want to know if you're tracking down Bigfoot today. Emma drew you a picture of a forest monster. Stay safe, my love. We need you home. I typed back quickly. Just a routine search. Home by dinner. Love you guys. But as I started up the trail toward those coordinates, every instinct I'd developed in over a decade of wilderness rescue was screaming that nothing about this would be routine. The forest itself felt alive and hungry. The Hoh River Trail starts deceptively easy, a well-maintained path through cathedral groves of ancient cedars and Sitka spruces, some over 500 years old. But 20 minutes in, following Emily's GPS breadcrumbs from her phone's last known location, I veered onto what appeared to be a deer trail, except no deer had made this path. The impressions in the moss were too deliberate, too evenly spaced. Worse, they seemed to lead directly toward the thickest part of the forest, where the canopy blocked out so much sunlight that it felt like twilight at 10 a.m. My Garmin GPS started acting up first. The coordinates kept shifting, showing me 50 feet north of where I'd been a second before, then jumping to show me a quarter-mile southeast. I tried recalibrating twice before giving up and switching to old-school navigation, compass, and map. The compass needle spun like a roulette wheel before settling on what should have been due west, except I could see the sun breaking through the canopy to my left, which meant I was actually facing north. Either my compass was broken, or something was seriously wrong with the magnetic field in this area. Unit 47 to base, I called into my radio. Static answered me. Unit 47 to any unit, radio check. More static, then a sound that made my blood freeze, something that might have been Emily Rodriguez's voice, whispering my name. I stood perfectly still for 30 seconds, listening. The forest was wrong. No bird calls, no insect buzz, no rustle of small animals in the underbrush. Just my own breathing and the distant sound of the Hoh River, except the river should have been behind me, and the sound was coming from ahead. That's when I first felt them. The eyes. It started as a tickle between my shoulder blades, the sensation you get when someone's staring at you from across a crowded room. I turned around, expecting to see another search team member, but the trail behind me was empty. The feeling persisted, growing stronger, multiplying. One set of eyes became 2, then 5, then dozens. They weren't watching me from ground level. They were above, in the canopy, and somehow I knew they weren't human or animal. They were something else entirely. I unholstered my maglite and swept the beam across the towering branches. Nothing but moss-covered bark and hanging lichens. But the moment I lowered the light, the watching sensation returned, more intense than before. My heart rate spiked from a resting 65 BPM to over 100. I could feel it hammering against my ribs as I continued deeper into the forest, following what I hoped was Emily's trail. The path seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at it, curving left when I remembered it going straight, dipping into hollows that hadn't been there moments before. By 11:30 a.m., I was thoroughly lost. My phone had no signal, which wasn't unusual in the deep forest, but when I checked my photos for reference, something made my hands shake. The picture Karen had sent that morning of Emma's drawing was different. Instead of the cute crayon monster I remembered, Emma had apparently drawn hundreds of eyes scattered through a dark forest, with a stick figure man in the center looking terrified. I hadn't remembered the drawing being like that. I tried calling out for Emily, cupping my hands around my mouth. Emily Rodriguez, this is Park Service. Can you hear me? My voice echoed strangely, as if the trees were bouncing it back with words rearranged. Can you see me? Emily, Emily, this is Park. Hear me. And underneath my own echo, barely audible, came a response that definitely wasn't Emily. We see you, Derek Sullivan. I'm a rational man, 12 years of wilderness rescue teaches you to separate real dangers from imagination. Bears are real. Hypothermia is real. Getting lost and panicking is the #1 killer of experienced outdoorsmen. But ghosts? Supernatural entities? I'd always filed those under campfire stories, standing in that impossible forest, hearing my name whispered by something that had never been human. I realized how wrong I'd been. The temperature had dropped to maybe 40 degrees, and my breath was starting to mist. More concerning, the light filtering through the canopy was dimming, even though my watch showed 12:47 p.m., still several hours until sunset. It was as if the forest was swallowing the daylight. I tried my radio again. Mayday, Mayday, this is Unit 47. I'm not sure of my location. GPS and compass are malfunctioning. Visibility decreasing. Request immediate assistance. The static that answered me resolved into something that sounded almost like laughter. High, musical, and completely inhuman. That's when I saw the first eye. It was easily 10 feet up in a massive cedar, perfectly camouflaged until it blinked. Not an animal eye. Too large, maybe 8 inches across, with an iris that shifted color from gold to green to deep purple. The pupil was shaped wrong, more like a keyhole than a circle, and it was undeniably fixed on me. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, there were 3 more. Then 7, then too many to count. They weren't growing out of the trees. They were the trees. Or the trees were growing around them. Ancient eyes that had been watching this forest for centuries, maybe millennia, embedded in bark and moss and hanging branches like organic security cameras. Holy shit, I whispered, and immediately regretted speaking. Every single eye turned toward the sound of my voice, tracking me with predatory interest. My training kicked in. Document everything, stay calm, find shelter, signal for help. I pulled out my phone and started recording a voice memo as I backed away from the largest cluster of eyes. This is Derek Sullivan, Ranger Unit 47, October 15th, 2018, approximately 1 p.m. I'm documenting what appears to be an unknown phenomenon in the Olympic National Forest. I'm seeing what look like large eyes embedded in the trees. They appear to be tracking my movement. I raised the phone to film, but the camera showed only normal forest, no eyes, just bark and leaves. Yet when I looked with my naked eyes, they were still there, hundreds of them now, blinking in slow, hypnotic patterns. The camera isn't picking them up, I continued recording, but I can see them clearly. They're beautiful and terrifying. That was my first mistake, calling them beautiful, because as soon as I said it, they responded. The eyes began to pulse with soft, warm light, like embers in a fireplace. And with the light came a feeling of peace that I'd never experienced, deeper than the calm I felt holding my newborn children, more profound than any religious experience. It was the peace of coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Every rational part of my mind was screaming danger, but my body was relaxing, my breathing slowing, my fear melting away like ice cream on hot asphalt. The eyes were singing to me now, not with sound, but with something that bypassed my ears and spoke directly to my soul. Derek, they whispered without words. You've been looking for us your whole life. You just didn't know it. We've been waiting for you, Derek. Waiting for someone who truly loves this forest, who understands its secrets. Stay with us. Your family will understand. They'll join you in time. I took a step forward, then another. The watching eyes were the most beautiful things I'd ever seen, shifting through spectrums of color that didn't have names. They showed me visions, myself running through the forest with superhuman speed, able to see through their networked consciousness. Every tree and stream and animal connected to me like nerve endings. I could protect this wilderness forever, be its guardian, its voice. My phone was still recording, and somewhere in the back of my mind I heard my own voice saying, "They're so beautiful. I think I understand why Emily stayed. Why she couldn't leave. Emily, the missing hiker, the woman I was supposed to find. She's with us now, the eyes whispered. Happy, complete, free from the pain of human existence. You can see her if you want. She's been waiting for you. And there she was, stepping out from behind a massive spruce about 30 yards ahead. Emily Rodriguez, exactly as she appeared in her missing person photo, wearing the same red REI jacket and blue hiking pants. She was smiling, but her eyes were the same impossible color as the ones watching me from the trees. "Derek," she called, her voice carrying perfectly in the still air. "I've been waiting for you. They told me you were coming." She gestured for me to follow her deeper into the forest, toward a grove where the eyes were so thick they looked like Christmas lights, pulsing in perfect synchronization. "Emily," I called back, fighting against the hypnotic pull. "Your sister is looking for you. Sarah. She's worried sick." Emily's smile never wavered. "Sarah will understand when she comes looking for me, when she sees what I've seen." "What have you seen?" "Everything, Derek. The truth about this place, about what we really are." I took another step forward, my rational mind growing quieter with each pulse of those beautiful alien eyes. Emily was right. I could feel the truth of it settling into my bones. This was where I belonged, where I'd always belonged. Then my phone buzzed with a text message and the spell shattered like glass. But if this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Derek Sullivan's situation? Comment below. The text was from Emma, my 8-year-old daughter. "Daddy, when are you coming home? Jack said monsters are real and I'm scared. Mom says you're helping someone, but I drew you a protection spell. I love you." Attached was a photo of a new drawing, me surrounded by a circle of hearts with "Daddy come home safe" written in purple crayon. The love hit me like a physical force, burning away the hypnotic fog that had been clouding my mind. I was Derek Sullivan. I was a father, a husband, a ranger who saved people, not someone who abandoned his family to join forest spirits. "No!" I shouted, backing away from Emily, or whatever was wearing Emily's face. "I'm going home to my kids." The thing that looked like Emily tilted its head, confused. "But Derek, you belong here, you can feel it." "I belong with my family." The moment I said it, the forest erupted in rage. The eyes in the trees blazed like searchlights, no longer beautiful but hostile and alien. The temperature plummeted 20 degrees in seconds, and my breath came out in visible puffs as something vast and ancient focused its attention on me like a laser. "No one leaves." A voice boomed inside my skull, not words but pure concept downloaded directly into my brain. "Not Emily, not you, not anyone who has seen us." The trees began to move, not swaying in the wind. There was no wind, actually moving, their trunks twisting and bending like rubber, roots tearing free from the earth with sounds like breaking bones. The deer trail I'd been following disappeared entirely as the forest rearranged itself, creating a maze of living wood with me at the center. Emily's face was changing now, her features becoming less human with each second. Her skin took on the texture of bark. Her hair became hanging moss and her smile stretched too wide, revealing teeth that were pointed like thorns. "You can't leave, Derek," she said in a voice like wind through dead leaves. "No one who sees us can ever leave." I ran. Running through a forest that's actively trying to kill you is nothing like the movies. Within 50 yards, I was gasping for breath, my 70-pound pack bouncing painfully against my spine. Branches that had been 10 feet high dropped to face level, trying to clothesline me. Roots erupted from the ground to catch my boots. The very earth tilted and shifted under my feet. My radio crackled to life. "Unit 47, this is base. What's your location? We're showing your GPS beacon moving in circles." I grabbed the handset while dodging a low-hanging branch that seemed to track my movement. "Base, this is Unit 47, I'm in the shit. The forest is... the trees are moving. Something's got Emily Rodriguez." "Unit 47, say again? You're breaking up." A root caught my left boot, and I went down hard, landing face first in a patch of moss that smelled like rotting flesh. When I rolled over, gasping, Emily was standing directly above me, no longer even pretending to be human. She was part of the forest now, skin of bark, hair of moss, eyes like burning coals. The entity you call Olhos na Escuridão has been here since before your kind walked upright, she said, her voice harmonizing with itself in impossible ways. We are the Watchers, the Guardians, the memory of this place, and you have seen too much. I scrambled to my feet, my heart hammering at 150 BPM, vision starting to tunnel from fear and exertion. I just want to go home. Home? Emily laughed, a sound like breaking glass. This is your home now, Derek Sullivan. Forever. The eyes in the trees were pulsing faster now, their light shifting from warm gold to angry red. I could feel my sanity starting to crack under the pressure of that alien intelligence pressing against my mind, trying to rewrite my thoughts, my memories, my very identity. But then I thought about Karen making coffee in our kitchen, humming Taylor Swift. About Emma's drawing, her purple crayon protection spell. About Jack asking if monsters were real. About the promise I'd made that morning to come home for soccer practice. And something inside me awakened. It started in my chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with body temperature. It spread through my arms, my legs, behind my eyes, filling me with a strength I'd never known I possessed. This wasn't the alien power the entity was offering. This was something purely human. Love. Protective love for my family. Amplified beyond anything I'd thought possible. I said no, I growled, and my voice carried a power that made the watching eyes flinch. Emily Thing stepped backward, uncertainty flickering across her bark-textured features. What are you? I'm a father, I said, and the words came out like a battle cry. I'm a husband, and nothing is keeping me from my family. I pulled out my mag light and switched it on. The LED beam cut through the supernatural darkness like a sword, and wherever the light touched, the moving trees froze in place. The watching eyes squeezed shut, unable to bear its touch. That's when I understood. The entity fed on isolation, on people who were lost and alone. But I wasn't alone. Even here in this impossible place, I carried my family's love with me like armor. My phone had 2 bars of signal. I speed-dialed Karen's number, and she answered on the first ring. Derek? Thank God, I was getting worried. Karen, I said, backing toward what I hoped was the trail out, keeping my flashlight beam sweeping across the hostile eyes. I need you to know something. I love you and the kids more than my own life. Derek, you're scaring me. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong anymore, I said, and I meant it. The entity was still there, still furious, but its power over me was broken. I'm coming home. Emily Thing let out a shriek that sounded like a centuries-old tree falling, and suddenly she was just gone. Not vanishing, but crumbling away like old bark, returning to the forest floor. The watching eyes were fading too, becoming ordinary knots and shadows in the bark. The trees stopped moving. My compass needle swung back to magnetic north. I'll be home in 3 hours, I told Karen. And I'm never leaving you guys overnight again. I found the real Emily Rodriguez 2 miles from where I'd encountered her doppelganger, unconscious but alive in a natural hollow beneath a fallen log. She was hypothermic and dehydrated, but her vitals were strong. When she came to in the ambulance, she kept talking about beautiful dreams and friendly eyes, but she couldn't remember anything after following that deer trail. The entity had been feeding off her somehow, using her as a lure for other lost souls, including me. Without that connection, its power in our world was severely limited. I never reported what really happened out there. Who would believe it? Instead, I filed a standard report about Emily getting disoriented and taking shelter, and me getting briefly lost due to equipment malfunction. Case closed. But I kept thinking about what the entity had shown me. Those visions of other missing people, dozens of them over the years, all lured deeper into the forest by the promise of belonging. All those cold cases that were never solved. 3 weeks later, I put in for a transfer to a ranger station in Arizona. Someplace with more desert, Fewer trees and definitely fewer shadows where ancient things could hide and watch. Karen asked me why, and I told her the truth. Because some forests are too dark, even for rangers. We moved to Sedona 6 months later. The kids love it here. Lots of sunshine, red rocks instead of towering trees, and wide open spaces where you can see for miles in every direction. But sometimes at night, I still feel eyes watching me from the darkness beyond our porch light. And sometimes when I'm tucking Emma into bed, she looks at me with those serious 8-year-old eyes and says, "Daddy, the trees here don't have as many secrets, do they?" I always tell her, "No, sweetheart, they don't." I just pray she never has to learn what kinds of secrets I'm talking about. Because some truths are too heavy for children to carry, and some forests are too hungry for human souls. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror, and comment your theory about what really happened to Emily Rodriguez. I read every single one. My name is Ryan O'Connor, and I've been a forest ranger at Olympic National Forest for 6 years. People at the station call me Professor behind my back. Not exactly a compliment when you're trying to prove yourself among guys who've been tracking wildlife since before GPS existed. They think my master's degree in forestry and my habit of reading archaeological journals makes me soft. Maybe they're right. Maybe that's why I'm the one who volunteered to search for Taylor Morgan when nobody else wanted the case. It's October 15th, 2018, 6:47 a.m. according to my Casio watch, and I'm standing in the parking lot of the Saul Duke Ranger Station with my Kelty pack weighing exactly 32 pounds on my shoulders. My Merrill boots are double-laced, my Garmin eTrex 20X GPS has fresh batteries, and my Motorola CP200D radio is set to channel 3. Standard search and rescue protocol. Everything by the book, just how I like it. Sarah texted me 20 minutes ago. "Coffee's getting cold, babe. Lucy drew you a picture of a forest ranger catching bad guys. Come home safe." I can still taste her morning coffee on my lips, dark roast with just a splash of cream, the way she's made it every morning for the past 8 years. In my shirt pocket, I've got Lucy's latest crayon masterpiece, a stick figure in a ranger hat standing next to what she insists is a super brave tree. My daughter's 7 and thinks I'm some kind of wilderness superhero. If she only knew how my hands shake every time I have to track solo. But this case is different. 22-year-old Taylor Morgan, graduate student in archaeology from University of Washington, reported missing 3 days ago by her research advisor. Last known position, GPS coordinates 47.9578 degree N, 123.865 degree W, deep in the Hoh River Valley, where the old-growth cedars create a canopy so thick that noon feels like twilight. According to her research notes, yeah, I actually read them unlike my colleagues, she was documenting pre-Columbian cultural sites in areas that haven't seen human footsteps in generations. The thing that bothers me is how quiet the forest has been since she disappeared. Not normal quiet, wrong quiet. Birds don't migrate through here in October. They avoid this valley entirely. Local Quileute tribal elders have been calling the station, asking strange questions about disturbances in areas they won't name. When pressed, they just say some places should remain sleeping. I check my gear one more time. Compass, first aid kit, water purification tablets, emergency bivvy, headlamp, backup flashlight, energy bars that taste like cardboard but keep you moving for hours. Everything organized and labeled because that's how my mind works. Compartmentalized, logical, systematic. Sarah says I treat life like a research project, and she's probably right. But research projects don't usually involve people disappearing into forests where the temperature drops 20 degrees for no meteorological reason. The trailhead sign reads, Hoh River Trail, Hall of Mosses 0.8 MI. I've walked this path dozens of times, leading tourist groups and tracking lost hikers. But today something feels fundamentally altered. Like someone moved all the furniture in a familiar room while I was sleeping. The Douglas firs seem to lean inward more than usual, creating tunnels of shadow that my eyes can't quite penetrate. The undergrowth, normally a chaotic tangle of ferns and salal, appears almost organized, forming patterns that remind me uncomfortably of the geometric designs I've seen in Pacific Northwest indigenous art. My radio crackles to life. Unit 23, this is dispatch. What's your 20? Unit 23 to dispatch. Currently at Ho River Trailhead, beginning systematic search of grid Alpha 7. ETA to Morgan's last known position, approximately 90 minutes. Copy that, Unit 23. Weather Service is reporting unusual atmospheric pressure in your area. Barometric readings are inconsistent. Maintain regular contact. Inconsistent barometric readings. That's Weather Service speak for our instruments are going crazy and we don't know why. I glance at my analog altimeter watch, another habit that separates me from the other rangers. The needle is fluctuating between 800 and 1200 feet of elevation, even though I haven't moved. Either my equipment is malfunctioning or something is interfering with basic physical laws. The first mile passes normally, if you ignore the way my footsteps seem to echo longer than they should. My Merrill Moab 2 boots have distinctive tread patterns. I've studied the impressions they leave in different soil types, because knowing your own sign is fundamental to tracking. But today, looking back at my trail, the boot prints appear deeper and more defined than the soft earth should allow. It's like the forest floor wants to remember exactly where I've been. At 0.8 miles, I reach Hall of Mosses, usually one of my favorite spots in the entire park. Ancient Sitka spruces draped in club moss create natural cathedrals that make even the most cynical tourist speak in whispers. But today, the moss hangs differently. Instead of the random, organic draping I know by heart, it forms distinct patterns, vertical lines that look almost like writing. I pull out my phone to document this anomaly, but the camera isn't capturing what I'm seeing. The screen shows normal moss growth, random and chaotic. But standing here looking directly at it, the patterns are unmistakable. Symbols, characters, language. My hands are trembling as I open Taylor Morgan's research notes on my phone. According to her documentation, she discovered possible petroglyphic evidence in this exact location. Her final field note, dated 3 days ago, reads, "Pattern recognition suggests intentional symbolic arrangement, recommending consultation with tribal historians. Something here predates current archaeological timeline estimates. The temperature has dropped 15 degrees in the last 10 minutes. My breath creates small clouds in air that should be 58 degrees Fahrenheit according to this morning's weather report. The Garmin GPS is showing my current location as impossible coordinates. Longitude readings that would place me somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I key the radio. Unit 23 to dispatch. GPS is showing anomalous readings, requesting weather update and equipment check protocol. Static, then more static, then silence. Unit 23 to dispatch. Do you copy? Nothing but the sound of my own breathing and heartbeat, which seems unnaturally loud in the oppressive quiet. No bird calls, no insect buzzing, no wind rustling through the canopy above. Just the soft padding of my boots on a trail that's becoming increasingly unfamiliar, despite the fact that I've walked it hundreds of times. Ahead, maybe 50 yards down the trail, something moves between the trees, human-shaped but wrong proportions. Too tall, moving with a gait that doesn't match normal human locomotion. Taylor, my voice cracks slightly. Professional protocol says to identify myself clearly and approach with caution. Taylor Morgan? This is Ranger O'Connor with Olympic National Forest Service. Can you hear me? The figure stops moving but doesn't turn around. From this distance, it could be a woman with long dark hair, wearing what looks like a backpack. But something about the silhouette makes my skin crawl with primitive, lizard brain fear that has nothing to do with logical analysis. I advance slowly, one hand on my radio, trying to maintain visual contact while navigating the increasingly treacherous root systems that seem to be shifting position when I'm not looking directly at them. The forest floor, which should be soft and yielding from recent rainfall, feels strangely solid beneath my boots, almost warm. At 30 yards, I can see that what I thought was a backpack is actually some kind of bundle strapped to the figure's shoulders. At 20 yards, I realize the figure's feet aren't quite touching the ground. At 10 yards, I understand that what I'm looking at isn't Taylor Morgan, isn't human, and definitely isn't something that should exist in any rational universe. But that's when the real terror begins, because the thing turns around and it has Taylor's face. Act 2. The archaeology of horror. The face is perfect. Every detail exact, from the small scar above Taylor's left eyebrow that I remember from her driver's license photo, to the way she tucked her hair behind her right ear in the security footage from the ranger station, where she filed her research permit. But faces aren't supposed to exist independently, floating 3 feet above ground level, attached to something that definitely isn't a human body. Ranger O'Connor. It speaks with Taylor's voice, but the words echo from multiple directions simultaneously, as if the forest itself has learned to mimic human speech. I've been waiting for you. My training kicks in despite every instinct screaming at me to run, draw a weapon, establish communication, assess threat level. But my sidearm is a Glock 19 loaded with 9mm rounds, and I'm pretty sure bullets aren't going to be effective against whatever this is. Still, the familiar weight of the pistol grip in my hand provides a small measure of psychological comfort. Where is Taylor Morgan? I keep my voice steady, professional. I'm conducting a search and rescue operation. I need to know her current location and physical condition. The thing wearing Taylor's face tilts its head at an angle that would require a broken neck. She's exactly where she needs to be, Ranger O'Connor. Where she's always been. Where she'll always be. Behind the Taylor thing, the forest is changing. Trees that have stood for centuries are rearranging themselves with sounds like massive bones breaking. The trail I followed here no longer exists behind me. When I glance back, there's just dense undergrowth that looks like it's been undisturbed for decades. My GPS still shows impossible coordinates, and now my compass needle is spinning in slow, deliberate circles. Your research is impressive. The Taylor thing continues, floating closer. Master's degree in forestry from University of Washington. Specialized studies in Pacific Northwest ecosystem management, but no coursework in indigenous history, I notice. No understanding of what lies beneath. How does it know about my education? That information isn't in my Ranger personnel files, isn't something Taylor could have known, unless it's reading my mind, or accessing memories, or... You're wondering how I know, it says, confirming my worst fears. The land remembers everything, Ranger O'Connor. Every footstep, every violation, every act of disrespect. And you represent everything that's wrong with your people's approach to sacred spaces. My phone buzzes with an incoming text. Sarah. Lucy's school called. She's running a fever and keeps asking when Daddy's coming home. She drew another picture. This one has scary trees with faces. Kids have such weird imaginations, right? Love you. The irony isn't lost on me. While I'm confronting something that shouldn't exist, my daughter is drawing pictures that might be more accurate than any scientific explanation I could provide. But I can't think about Sarah and Lucy right now. Can't afford the distraction of love and fear for their safety. The archaeology student, I press, trying to maintain some semblance of control over this conversation. Taylor Morgan. What happened to her? She found things that were meant to remain hidden, took things that were meant to remain untouched, documented things that were meant to remain secret. The Taylor thing's expression shifts subtly, and for just a moment, I see genuine emotion. Fear, regret, desperation. She's trapped between what was and what is, Ranger O'Connor, just like you will be if you continue down this path. The bundle on its shoulders moves, subtle at first, then more obviously. Something alive is wrapped in what looks like traditional Pacific Northwest indigenous textiles. Cedar bark and mountain goat wool woven in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The bundle is breathing. Let me see her. I take a step forward, and immediately the temperature drops another 10 degrees. My breath comes out in visible puffs and frost begins forming on the metal fittings of my gear. Let me verify her condition. Condition? The Taylor thing laughs and the sound comes from everywhere and nowhere. She's experiencing truth, Ranger O'Connor. Unfiltered, undiluted truth about what your people have done to sacred places. About what happens when ancient boundaries are crossed without permission or understanding. My radio suddenly crackles to life. Unit 23, This is Chief Ranger Martinez. What's your status? We're showing some kind of electromagnetic interference in your grid. I grabbed the radio, never taking my eyes off the Taylor thing. Unit 23 to base. I've made contact with. Situation is. How do you explain this through official channels? How do you file a report that includes supernatural entities and impossible phenomena? Unit 23. Your transmission is breaking up. Say again your current status. The Taylor thing smiles with perfect lips that shouldn't exist. Tell them the truth, Ranger O'Connor. Tell them you found evidence of pre-Columbian cultural sites that challenge everything they think they know about this land. Tell them the archaeology student disturbed something that's been sleeping for centuries. Static overwhelms the radio frequency, and then silence. My Garmin GPS screen flickers and shows a message I've never seen before. Error, location not found in current reality. The truth is, the Taylor thing continues, drifting closer. Your people built this entire park system on burial grounds. Every trail, every ranger station, every visitor center sits on top of sacred sites that were never meant for recreational use. The Quileute people tried to warn you, but your government preferred the tourism revenue. My mind races through everything I know about the local tribal history. The Olympic Peninsula was inhabited by indigenous peoples for thousands of years before European contact. The Quileute, Maka, and other tribes had complex spiritual relationships with these forests that were largely ignored when the national park system was established. Areas that were considered sacred off-limits were turned into scenic hiking destinations. Taylor Morgan found proof, it says. Artifacts, burial sites, ceremonial grounds that predate your archaeological estimates by millennia. She documented everything, photographed everything, cataloged everything, and then she made the mistake of removing things that were meant to stay buried. The bundle on its shoulders shifts again, more violently this time. I can see what looks like a human hand pressing against the woven material from the inside. Taylor is alive in there, aware, probably conscious but unable to move or speak. What do you want, I ask, though I'm beginning to suspect I already know the answer. Restoration, the Taylor thing replies. The artifacts returned, the documentation destroyed, the violation acknowledged and atoned for, and most importantly, the boundary restored between the world of the living and the world of the sacred dead. Behind me, something crashes through the undergrowth. Heavy footsteps, multiple sets, moving with purpose and coordination. When I turn, I see shapes moving between the trees, humanoid but wrong, like the Taylor thing but different. Some are clearly indigenous in appearance, wearing traditional clothing that looks both ancient and perfectly preserved. Others are harder to identify, more abstract, as if they're composed of forest materials given human form. The ancestors, the Taylor thing explains unnecessarily. They've been patient for over a century, watching your people turn their burial grounds into tourist attractions. But patience has limits, especially when sacred objects are stolen. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Sarah. Ryan, Lucy's fever is getting worse. She keeps saying the scary trees are calling to Daddy. She's asking me to tell you not to go into the deep, dark place. I'm probably being silly, but I'm worried. Please call when you can. Children and animals are supposed to be more sensitive to supernatural phenomena. If Lucy is somehow picking up on what's happening here, if she's experiencing psychic distress because of my situation, then this is affecting more than just me. My family is being drawn into this whether they're physically present or not. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Ryan O'Connor's situation? Comment below. My family, I say, and my voice sounds smaller than I intended. This doesn't involve them. Everything is connected, Ranger O'Connor. The land, the living, the dead, the unborn. Your daughter draws pictures of trees with faces because she can feel the spirits that your people have displaced. Your wife makes coffee every morning at the same time because routine is humanity's way of creating meaning in a universe that doesn't care about your comfort. The spirits, I guess that's what they are, have formed a rough circle around us. Up close, I can see that their clothing and adornments are made from forest materials. Bark, moss, feathers, bones. But everything is too perfectly preserved, too vivid, as if death has enhanced rather than diminished their connection to the natural world. The archaeology student removed 17 artifacts from sacred burial sites. The Taylor thing continues. Arrowheads, bone tools, ceremonial objects, and one item that should never have been disturbed under any circumstances. What item? A guardian stone, carved with protective symbols and placed at the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. When she took it, the boundary disappeared. Now the ancestors can cross freely, and they're not pleased with what they found. My altimeter watch shows I'm now at an elevation of 2,847 feet, which is impossible since the Hoh River Valley floor sits at less than 500 feet above sea level. Either I've somehow climbed nearly half a mile without realizing it, or reality is being actively rewritten around me. Where are the artifacts now? Some are in her research vehicle, parked at the trailhead. Others are in her hotel room in Forks. But the guardian stone, the Taylor thing's expression becomes genuinely fearful. She mailed it to a research advisor at the university. It left the forest. The ancestors can follow its path, and they will, until it's returned. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If these spirits can follow the stone's path, they're not confined to the Olympic Peninsula. They can reach Seattle, the university, potentially anyone who comes into contact with the stolen artifacts. This isn't just a local phenomenon, it's expanding, spreading, following the trail of violation. How do I fix this? Return what was taken, acknowledge what was done, accept what must be sacrificed. Sacrificed? The Taylor thing gestures toward the bundle on its shoulders. She opened the boundary. She must help close it, from the inside. Which means Taylor has to die. Or maybe she's already dead, and what's wrapped in that bundle is something else entirely. Either way, the entity wearing her face is telling me that one person has to die to save potentially hundreds or thousands of others. But I'm a forest ranger, not an executioner. My job is to preserve life, protect resources, and maintain the delicate balance between human recreation and ecosystem preservation. I don't get to decide who lives and who dies. That's when the real horror sets in, because I realize the decision might not be mine to make. Act 3. The weight of sacred stones. The thing is, I've always been good at solving problems. Give me a damaged trail system, and I'll design a restoration plan. Show me an invasive species, and I'll develop an eradication strategy. Present me with a lost hiker, and I'll calculate search patterns until we find them alive. But standing in a forest that defies basic physics, surrounded by the spirits of people my culture displaced, being asked to choose between one life and many, this isn't the kind of problem my education prepared me for. My phone has 3 missed calls from Sarah and 2 from the ranger station. The most recent text from my wife reads, "Lucy collapsed at school. We're at Olympic Medical Center in Port Angeles. She keeps whispering coordinates, 47.9578 north, 123.8625 west. Those numbers mean something, don't they? Please come home." Those are the exact coordinates of Taylor's last known position. My 7-year-old daughter is somehow accessing information she couldn't possibly know, which means this supernatural event has already extended its reach beyond the forest boundaries. Whatever force is at work here, it's not confined by geography or limited by physical presence. Your daughter is sensitive, the Taylor thing observes, reading my phone over my shoulder with eyes that reflect light like an animal's. Indigenous blood, perhaps? Somewhere in your family line? I think about my grandmother on my father's side, Mary O'Connor, who always claimed to have the sight. She could predict weather changes days in advance, knew when family members were in trouble before anyone called, and refused to enter certain buildings because they felt wrong. The family always dismissed her as eccentric, but maybe there was more to her intuition than we understood. My grandmother, I admit, she might have had some Native American ancestry. She never talked about it directly, but there were hints. The ancestors recognized their own, even after generations of separation. Your daughter is calling to you through bloodlines that connect her to this land, and she's in danger because the boundary disruption affects everyone with spiritual sensitivity. The circle of spirits has tightened around us. I can see details now that make my anthropological training kick in despite the terror. Their clothing shows influences from multiple Pacific Northwest tribes, Quileute, Maka, Ozette, and others I can't identify. Some wear cedar bark clothing typical of coastal peoples, while others display inland influences like woven grass and bone ornaments. But they're not just from one time period. Some show evidence of contact with European traders, metal buttons, glass beads, woven cloth. Others appear much older, wearing purely traditional materials that suggest they died before colonial contact. "How long have you been here?" I ask. An elderly woman steps forward from the circle. She's the most solid-looking of the spirits, wearing a beautifully woven cedar bark dress decorated with dentalium shells and geometric patterns that seem to shift and move when I'm not looking directly at them. "I am Tizita, grandmother of the Quileute nation, keeper of the old agreements." Her voice sounds like wind through old growth trees. "I died the winter before the first white ships came to our shores, and I have been guarding these burial grounds for over 200 years. The old agreements? Between the living and the dead, between the human world and the spirit world, between those who take and those who give. Your people broke every agreement when they built their recreation systems on our sacred sites. But we maintained the boundary as best we could, limiting the damage, keeping the worst spirits contained." She gestures toward the bundle on the tailor thing's shoulders, which has become more agitated. I can hear muffled sounds now, someone trying to speak through layers of traditional wrapping. Until this one came with her digging tools and her cameras and her academic arrogance. She found burial sites that had been hidden for centuries, documented sacred objects that were never meant for scholarly study, and then she took the guardian stone that held the entire boundary system together. My radio crackles again. "Unit 23, this is Chief Martinez. We have a medical emergency at Olympic Medical Center. Your daughter has been admitted with symptoms that don't match any known condition. She's asking for you specifically and providing information about your current operation that she couldn't possibly know. What's your status?" I key the radio. "Chief, I need immediate backup at coordinates 47.9578 north, 123.8625 west. I've located Taylor Morgan, but the situation is complicated, and patch me through to Olympic Medical Center. I need to speak with my wife." "Unit 23, those coordinates don't exist on our mapping system. Our GPS shows that location is undefined. Are you sure about your position?" The elderly spirit, Tsita, nods approvingly. "At least you're honest about what you don't understand. That's more than most of your people manage." Static fills the radio frequency, and then Sarah's voice comes through, distorted and faint. "Ryan, Lucy's doctors can't figure out what's wrong with her. She's not exactly unconscious, but she's not really awake either. It's like she's seeing things that aren't there. She keeps drawing the same picture over and over. A man in a ranger uniform surrounded by people in old-fashioned clothes. Sarah, listen carefully. Take Lucy home right now. Don't let her stay in the hospital. Get her as far from the Olympic Peninsula as possible." "Ryan, what's going on? You're scaring me." "I can't explain right now, but Lucy is somehow connected to what I'm dealing with out here. She'll be safer away from this area until I can resolve the situation." "Resolve what situation? Ryan, you're not making sense." The radio cuts to static before I can respond. When it clears, Chief Martinez is back on frequency. "Unit 23, your last transmission was garbled. Medical Center reports that your wife and daughter left the building approximately 10 minutes ago. No one saw them leave and their vehicle is still in the parking lot." My blood goes cold. Sarah and Lucy are missing now too, which means whatever force is at work here has the ability to affect people miles away from the actual forest location. This is escalating beyond a simple boundary violation. It's becoming a full supernatural crisis that could affect anyone with even a distant connection to the disturbed sacred sites. "Where are my wife and daughter?" I demand. Tisita exchanges glances with the other spirits. They are safe for now. But safety is temporary when the boundary between worlds has been destroyed. The longer the Guardian Stone remains away from its proper place, the more the spiritual world will bleed into the physical world. What does that mean exactly? It means that spirits who have been contained for centuries are now free to interact with the living. It means that sacred sites across the entire Pacific Northwest are losing their protective barriers. It means that your daughter, who carries the blood of both peoples, is becoming a bridge between worlds whether she wants to be or not. The bundle on the Taylor Thing's shoulders has gone completely still. Either Taylor has lost consciousness, or she's listening intently to our conversation, trying to understand her role in this supernatural disaster. There is a way to restore the boundary, Sita continues, but it requires sacrifice from both worlds. Someone living must take the Guardian Stone back to its proper place and voluntarily cross into the spirit world, and someone dead must agree to guide them safely across. You're talking about human sacrifice. I'm talking about balance. The archaeology student disrupted an equilibrium that has existed for centuries. The only way to restore it is for someone to willingly take her place as guardian of the boundary. My phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown number. Daddy, the tree people brought us to a safe place, but we can't come home until you fix what got broken. Lucy says she's not scared because she knows you're the smartest ranger in the whole forest. We love you. S. Sarah would never send a message like that. The phrasing is wrong. The terminology isn't something she'd use, but it contains information that suggests she and Lucy are indeed somewhere safe, at least temporarily. The spirits have taken them as leverage, but they haven't harmed them. Yet. If I agree to this, I say, if I take the Guardian Stone back and cross into the spirit world, my wife and daughter go home safely? Your family will return to their normal lives, Sita confirms, but you will become the new guardian of this boundary, maintaining the separation between worlds for as long as the sacred sites need protection. And Taylor? The archaeology student has already partially crossed. She exists between worlds now, neither fully alive nor completely dead. She can return to full life only if someone else takes her place. Or she can complete the crossing and become a spirit guardian herself. The Taylor Thing finally speaks. Ranger O'Connor, I can hear everything you're saying. I'm conscious in here, aware of what's happening, and I need you to know that I understand the consequences of what I did. I disturbed sacred sites without permission, removed artifacts that weren't mine to take, and documented things that were meant to remain secret. I accept responsibility for the boundary disruption. Her voice is muffled, but clearly her own, not the otherworldly echo I've been hearing from her duplicate. This is the real Taylor Morgan, wrapped in ceremonial textiles, suspended between life and death. But I also need you to know that my research advisor at the University of Washington has the Guardian Stone, and he's planning to display it in the museum as part of a new exhibit on Pacific Northwest archaeology. If it goes on public display, if hundreds of people see it and touch it and treat it as a curiosity, the boundary disruption will spread across the entire region. The implications hit me like a physical blow. A sacred object designed to maintain the separation between worlds, displayed in a museum for public viewing, touched by countless visitors who have no understanding of its true purpose. It would be like opening a spiritual floodgate that could never be closed. When does the exhibit open? 3 days. Taylor's voice becomes more urgent. Halloween night. Professor Hendricks thought it would be appropriate timing for objects related to primitive spiritual beliefs. He doesn't understand what he's dealing with. Halloween. The traditional night when the boundary between the living and dead is thinnest. Displaying a guardian stone designed to maintain that very boundary, on the one night when spiritual activity is naturally at its peak. It's a combination that could have catastrophic consequences. I have to get to Seattle, I say. I have to stop that exhibit. Sita shakes her head. The Guardian Stone cannot be returned by someone who doesn't understand its true nature. It must be carried by someone who has crossed the boundary, who exists in both worlds simultaneously. Like Taylor. Like Taylor, or like you if you choose to accept the crossing. My radio crackles one final time. All units, this is dispatch. We're receiving reports of unusual phenomena across the entire Olympic Peninsula. Temperature anomalies, electromagnetic interference, and multiple missing person reports. Whatever's happening in Grid Alpha 7 is spreading. Unit 23, what's your status? I look around at the circle of spirits. at the Taylor thing carrying the real Taylor Morgan, at a forest that no longer follows the laws of physics I understand. I think about Sarah and Lucy, somewhere in the space between worlds, waiting for me to make a decision that will determine not just their safety, but the spiritual stability of the entire Pacific Northwest region. And I realize that sometimes being the smartest person in the forest means knowing when you're facing problems that can't be solved with intelligence alone. Sometimes you have to choose between being a ranger and being a guardian. Act 4. The Crossing of the Educated Dead. The decision when it comes isn't really a decision at all. It's an acknowledgement of what I've known since I first saw my daughter's drawings of trees with faces. Some things are more important than individual survival. Some responsibilities transcend personal desires, and some problems can only be solved by people willing to become part of the solution in ways they never intended. I'll do it, I tell Tasita. I'll take the crossing and become a guardian of the boundary. The elderly spirit nods with what might be approval or relief. You understand that this means leaving your physical existence behind? That you will become like us? Present, but not alive. Aware, but not mortal? I understand, though of course I don't. Not really. How can anyone truly understand what it means to die while remaining conscious, to exist in the space between worlds, to give up everything familiar for the sake of maintaining cosmic balance? But I think about Lucy drawing pictures that showed her father surrounded by spirits before she ever knew what I was facing. I think about Sarah making coffee every morning with the unconscious precision of someone who understands that routine creates meaning in a chaotic universe. I think about Taylor Morgan, wrapped in ceremonial burial cloths, suspended between life and death because she made the mistake of treating sacred objects like archaeological specimens. And I think about the Guardian Stone, sitting in some university office waiting to be displayed in a museum exhibit that could tear the spiritual fabric of reality. There's a process, Sita explains. You must first retrieve the Guardian Stone from the university and return it to its proper place. Only then can the boundary be restored and your crossing be completed. But I'll be dead. How can I travel to Seattle if I'm dead? You won't be fully dead until the stone is returned. The crossing is gradual. You'll exist in both worlds simultaneously until the ritual is complete. Your physical body will remain functional, but your spirit will be partially separated, allowing you to interact with both the living and the dead. The Taylor thing, which I now understand is some kind of spiritual projection of the real Taylor, begins unwrapping the bundle on its shoulders. As the ceremonial textiles fall away, I can see the actual Taylor Morgan for the first time. She's pale and unconscious but breathing, alive but barely. She can return to full life once you take her place, Sita continues. But someone must complete the crossing within 3 days before the Halloween exhibit opens and the Guardian Stone is exposed to public contact. I check my watch. October 15th, 4:23 p.m. That gives me less than 72 hours to travel to Seattle, convince a university professor to give me an artifact worth thousands of dollars, and return to a forest location that may not exist in normal reality, all while undergoing some kind of spiritual transformation that will gradually separate my soul from my body. Just another day in the life of a forest ranger, right? My family, I say. Sarah and Lucy. I need to see them before I begin the crossing. The circle of spirits parts, revealing a path that definitely wasn't there before. At the end of the path, maybe 50 yards away, I can see 2 figures sitting on what looks like a fallen log. Sarah and Lucy, both looking unharmed but confused, as if they're not quite sure how they arrived at this location. I run toward them, ignoring the way the forest floor feels increasingly insubstantial beneath my feet. With each step, I can feel something fundamental changing in my body chemistry. My heart rate is slowing, my breathing becoming less necessary, my vision expanding to include spectrums of light that human eyes aren't supposed to perceive. Daddy! Lucy jumps up from the log and wraps her arms around my legs. She feels solid and warm and completely real, but there's something different about her too. Her eyes have taken on a faint luminescence, as if she's beginning to see the world the way spirits do. Ryan, what's happening to us? Sarah's voice carries the controlled panic of someone trying to stay calm for their child's sake. One minute we were in the hospital parking lot, and then, I don't know how to describe it. It was like we were transported somewhere else entirely. I kneeled down to Lucy's eye level. "Sweetheart, Daddy has to go away for a while to fix something that got broken in the forest. But I need you to promise me that you'll take care of Mommy and be the bravest little girl in the whole world." "Are you going to become one of the tree people?" she asks, with the matter-of-fact acceptance that only children can manage. "The ones with the old-time clothes who brought us here?" "Something like that, baby. But it's not scary, okay? It's just different. And I'll always be here in the forest if you need me." Sarah is staring at me with growing understanding. "You're not coming home, are you?" "Not in the way we planned." I take her hands, memorizing the feeling of her fingers intertwined with mine. "But Lucy will be safe, and you'll be safe, and the forest will be protected. Sometimes that's the best outcome we can hope for." She starts to cry, and I realize this might be the last time I see tears from someone I love. Once the crossing is complete, I'll exist outside normal human emotional experience. I'll remember love, but I won't feel it the same way. "I don't understand any of this," Sarah whispers. "You don't have to understand. You just have to trust that I'm making the right choice." I kiss her forehead, breathing in the scent of her shampoo one last time. "Take Lucy back to your sister's place in Portland. Stay there until after Halloween. Don't come back to the Olympic Peninsula until you're sure it's safe. How will we know it's safe?" I look back at the circle of spirits, at Sita watching our goodbye with the patience of someone who has seen this scene play out many times over the centuries. When the forest feels normal again, when the birds come back, when Lucy stops drawing pictures of tree people, my radio crackles to life one final time. "Unit 23, this is Chief Martinez. We're mounting a full search and rescue operation in Grid Alpha 7. Multiple missing persons, electromagnetic anomalies, and reports of unusual sightings. What's your status?" I key the radio. "Chief, this is Ryan O'Connor. I'm going to need extended leave to handle a family emergency. I'll file a full report when I can, but the situation in Alpha 7 requires specialized intervention that's outside normal Ranger protocols." "Unit 23, you're not making sense. Are you injured? Do you need medical evacuation?" "Negative, Chief. I'm exactly where I need to be." I turn off the radio and hand it to Sarah along with my Ranger badge, my service weapon, and my wedding ring. "Give these to Chief Martinez. Tell him I'm pursuing the missing person case through alternative channels." The hardest part is watching them walk away. Sarah carrying my gear, Lucy looking back over her shoulder with eyes that now glow faintly in the forest shadows. They disappear down a path that leads back toward normal reality, toward a world where forest rangers don't sacrifice themselves to maintain the balance between the living and the dead. When I turn back to the circle of spirits, I can feel that the crossing has already begun. My body feels lighter, less connected to physical reality. Colors are more vivid, sounds more layered, and I can perceive the emotional resonance of everything around me. The ancient sadness of trees that remember when this land was wild. The patient anger of spirits who have watched their sacred sites become tourist attractions. The desperate hope of ancestors who finally see a chance to restore the old agreements. "The first phase is complete," Sita announces. "Now you must retrieve the Guardian Stone and return it to its proper place. But be warned, the further you travel from this forest, the more difficult it will become to maintain your connection to both worlds." Taylor Morgan is sitting up now, still wrapped in ceremonial textiles but clearly conscious and aware. The Taylor thing has disappeared, its purpose served. "I'm coming with you," she says. "This is my responsibility. I'm the one who took the stone, and I should be the one to return it." "You can't survive the full crossing," I tell her. "You've already been partially separated from life. If you attempt the complete transition, you'll die. Then I'll die fixing what I broke. That's better than living knowing that my academic arrogance caused a supernatural disaster." Sita considers this exchange with the expression of someone who has mediated disputes for centuries. "There is another way. The archaeology student can guide you to the university, help you retrieve the stone, and assist with the return journey, but she must remain in the physical world while you complete the crossing. What does that mean for her? She will live, but she will never be fully human again. Like your daughter, she will exist partially in both worlds, serving as a bridge between the living and the spirits. Taylor nods acceptance. I can handle that. It's better than what I deserve. And so begins the strangest road trip of my existence. A dead man walking and a half-living archaeology student driving through Washington State in a government vehicle, carrying a sacred stone that shouldn't exist according to modern scientific understanding. My body functions normally, but I can feel my life force gradually separating from my physical form. By the time we reach the University of Washington campus in Seattle, I'm operating on what feels like autopilot. My consciousness split between maintaining basic human functions and perceiving the spiritual world that overlays normal reality. The university is crawling with invisible spirits, indigenous ancestors who died long before European contact, watching over a campus built on land that was once village sites and hunting grounds. They recognize what I'm becoming, nodding approval as we make our way to the anthropology building where Professor Hendricks has his office. Getting the Guardian Stone requires a combination of official authority. My ranger credentials still carry weight in academic circles. Emotional manipulation, Taylor's story about recovering from a traumatic experience in the forest, and what I can only describe as spiritual intervention, doors opening when they should be locked, security cameras malfunctioning at convenient moments, the professor's assistant suddenly remembering that she has an urgent appointment elsewhere. The stone itself is about the size of a softball, carved from some kind of black volcanic rock that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. The moment I touch it, I can feel the spiritual energy that makes it so important. It's like holding a piece of crystallized intention, centuries of prayers and rituals and protective ceremonies concentrated into physical form. Jesus Christ, Professor Hendricks mutters as I pick up the stone. The electromagnetic readings just went through the roof. What kind of mineral composition could cause that kind of field disturbance? The kind that belongs in the forest, not in a museum, I tell him. The drive back to Olympic National Forest passes in a kind of waking dream. I'm still functional enough to operate the vehicle, but my perception of reality is becoming increasingly fluid. I can see the spiritual history of every mile we travel. Village sites, burial grounds, battle sites, places where the boundary between worlds was always thin. Taylor sits in the passenger seat, serving as my anchor to physical reality, describing what she sees in normal vision while I navigate an increasingly complex supernatural landscape. By the time we reach the forest, it's past midnight on October 17th. I have less than 48 hours to complete the crossing before the Halloween exhibit opens and the Guardian Stone's absence causes irreversible damage to the boundary between worlds. Sita and the other spirits are waiting at the exact coordinates where this all began. The circle has expanded to include dozens of ancestors, representing tribes and time periods spanning centuries of Pacific Northwest history. At the center of the circle is what looks like an altar made of fallen cedar logs, arranged in patterns that mirror the geometric designs I've seen in traditional indigenous art. The Guardian Stone returns to its proper place, I announce, placing the carved rock at the center of the altar. The moment it touches the cedar logs, the entire forest seems to exhale with relief. Colors become more vivid, sounds more clear, and I can feel the spiritual boundary reasserting itself like a membrane growing back together after being torn. The crossing is complete, Sita says. Step into the circle, Ranger O'Connor, and take your place as guardian of the boundary between worlds. I look at Taylor one last time. She's still human enough to cry, tears streaming down her face as she watches me prepare to die for the sake of cosmic balance. Thank you, she whispers. Take care of yourself, I tell her. And maybe consider a different academic focus. Art history, maybe. Or literature. Something that doesn't involve digging up sacred sites. She laughs despite her tears. I was thinking about environmental education. Teaching people about the spiritual significance of protected lands. That works too. I step into the circle of spirits, feeling my physical body dissolve like morning fog. The last sensation of normal human existence is the Guardian Stone pulsing with warm energy, as it reconnects with the spiritual forces it was created to contain. then I'm something else. Still conscious, still me, but existing in a state that has no name in any human language. I can perceive the entire Olympic Peninsula as a single living system, feel every violation of sacred boundaries, sense every moment when the natural and supernatural worlds come into contact. It's not death exactly, it's transformation. And from this new perspective, I can see that the forest is healing. The spiritual wounds caused by Taylor's archaeological excavations are closing. The boundary between worlds is solid again. The ancestors are returning to their proper rest, confident that the sacred sites are protected. Most importantly, I can sense Sarah and Lucy safely arrived in Portland, sleeping peacefully in my sister-in-law's guest room. Lucy's dreams show no more tree people with faces. The supernatural crisis has ended. I am Ryan O'Connor, forest ranger turned spiritual guardian, keeper of the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the sacred dead. I protect these forests not just from human interference, but from the supernatural forces that would exploit weaknesses in the fabric of reality. It's not the life I planned, but it's the existence I chose. And sometimes that makes all the difference. The guardian stone pulses with warm energy in the center of the cedar altar, maintaining the balance I died to restore. Around me, the spirits of ancestors nod approval and fade back into the peaceful rest they've earned through centuries of patient watching. The forest is quiet now. Normal quiet. The kind of silence that means all is well in both worlds. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror. And comment your theory about what really happened to Taylor Morgan. I read every single one.